Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to dive into the Player's Handbook and look at some second level MU spells. Why that? Well, when I was newer to D&D, the first year or two I played, I didn't consider the second level spells very good. There's not a lot of damage spells in there, and I thought, oh, I can't wait till I get to third level and I get the fireball, the lightning bolt option, spell that fly, all kinds of good spells in third level. But here in the second level, not so much. Wrong. I learned over time that I was very wrong. There's a couple of really useful spells in second level. I'm going to hit on a couple of them a little bit and tell you how we've used them in our campaign and just have some fun with it. Also, subscribers, come on in. Growing the channel. Let's keep it growing. Also, I'm running a Patreon with an active reward. Please take a look below. Done with commercial. Back to the important stuff. Look at a couple of AD&D second level MU spells from the Player's Handbook. The AD&D First Edition Player's Handbook, still one of my absolute favorite covers of any role-playing game I've ever bought. I just really love this cover. We're going to take a look at some of the second level spells that are presented in this book. I'm not going to hit every spell, but I'm going to touch on a few of the important ones. And the reason I'm touching on the second level spells is as I said in the intro, when I was newer to AD&D, I didn't think much of getting second level spells. You finally made it to third level MU, you're going to be able to cast some second level spells for the first time, and the spell list just didn't impress me. Web was always good, and visibility is really important, but I didn't think much of anything else. Boy, was I wrong. Second level has some tremendous spells. We're not going to look at each and every spell. We're going to go to a couple of the ones that I find more important, like knock, 60-foot range, 10 square feet per level, 1 segment casting time, will open stuck or held or wizard locked doors. It will also open barred or otherwise locked doors. It causes secret doors to open. The knock spell will also open locked or trick opening boxes or chests. It will loose shackles and chains as well. If it's used to open a wizard locked door, the knock does not remove the spell, but simply suspends its functioning for 1 turn. In all other cases, the knock will permanently open locks or welds, although the former could be closed and locked again afterward. Will not raise bars or similar impediments such as support colors. The spell will perform 2 functions, but for doors locked, barred, and held, opening will require 2 knock spells. So if I've got the thing locked with a door lock, a knob lock, deadbolt, and a chain lock, I would get 2 with the first knock spell, so I would get the deadbolt and the knob lock, but then I would need another spell to get the chain to open. Knock is a really wonderful spell. I recommend it highly. Coming over to mirror image. This one caused a lot of confusion in our table for a while, simply because it's worded kind of ambiguously, and one of my players tried to use it as a limited teleport. So basically it's a level 2 spell, as all these are. Range is 0, so it's basically just you. 2 rounds per level, 2 segment casting time, and a 6-foot radius of the spellcaster. When a mirror image is invoked, the spellcaster causes from 1 to 4 exact duplicates of himself to come into being, and they surround your person. The images do exactly what the magic user does, and as the spell causes a blurring and slight distortion when it is affected, it is impossible for opponents to be certain which are the phantasms and which are the actual magic users. When an image is struck by a weapon, magical or otherwise, it disappears, but any other existing images remain until struck. The images seem to shift from round to round, so that if the actual magic user is struck during a round, he or she cannot be picked out from amongst his or her images the next round. To determine the number of images which appear, roll percentile dice and add 1 to the resulting score for each level of the caster. So if I'm a 10th level caster, I add 10% to it. And then it's 1 to 25, you get 1 mirror image, 26 to 52, 51 to 75, 3 images, and 75 to 100, 4 images. At the expiration of the spell, all images wink out. Well, we were confused because the blurring and all that stuff, we kind of took to mean that you were actually being shunted around with the images. So one of my players said, well, I'm going to cast a mirror image right next to this sealed door, and we're going to go ahead and I'll be right next to it, and then that'll move me on the other side of the sealed door because I'm 6 feet away. Similar argument in effect with the blink spell, which is a 3rd level spell. I didn't allow that because it doesn't say here that you actually move. And spell as intended does not mean for you to be able to kind of get anywhere with the spell. It's simply to confuse your opponents. This spell actually is used by Loki in the Marvel Universe movies quite a bit. You see him use mirror image a fair amount of the time, and it's a very effective spell. The way we do this, though, makes it just a little bit more powerful. Uh, if I had, for instance, 3 images plus myself, being the magic user, there would be a total of 4 of us there. So the fighter swings and he gets the armor class hit. He always has to roll to hit the armor class. So now he's rolled and he's hit the armor class, and the armor class, once been hit, the DM could throw a 4-sider and then say, okay, you're magic user. If I roll a 1, then he's hit you. And so he's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have a 25% chance to be hit. I do it a little differently. With the 4 images, I make it a little more interactive for the player, and I think and I make it more difficult to get rid of the spell. I throw a 4-sider as the DM, but the player also throws a 4-sider, and the images, or he only is struck as the magic user if we match the same number on the die. For instance, if I throw a 4-sider and I come up with a 3, and he throws a 4-sider and comes up with a 2, then I've struck an image, not him. I realize this removes it from being a 1 in 25 chance to be hit to about a 1 in 12.5% chance. I don't care. It's fun. It's more interactive for the player. It kind of gets everybody on the edge of their seat wondering if, the actual MU will be hit or if it'll be the mirror image. So now I've dropped the images to 2 images plus the magic user. Now we throw 6-siders and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for a half die 6. And then if we match on that number, so if I threw a 2 and he throws a 1, we do match in the 1 and 2. I actually struck the magic user. That's the bad news. The good news is he doesn't lose an image. So we keep this going until all the images are gone, or the melee is done, or the spell expires. It's just how we've done mirror image. It makes mirror image a lot more interactive for the players, and honestly, I think it improves the spell. Now we're going to take a look at Rope Trick. I poo-pooed this spell when I first started reading the second level spells, and then when I came back to it, I realized what a tremendous spell this really is. 2-segment casting time. It lasts 2 turns per level, which is 20 minutes per level. So if I'm 6th level, it'll last 12 turns or 2 hours. When the spell is cast upon a piece of rope from 5 to 30 foot in length, one end of the rope rises into the air until the whole is hanging perpendicular as if fixed at the upper end. So it's hanging like it's been hung from something. The upper end is in fact fastened in an interdimensional space, extra-dimensional space. And the spellcaster and up to 5 others can climb up the rope and disappear into this place of safety, where no creature can find them. The rope cannot be taken into the extra-dimensional space if 6 persons have climbed up, but otherwise it can be pulled up. So if it's you and 4 party members, then the rope can be pulled up. Interestingly, it doesn't say the MU has to be one of the people that climbs in. Otherwise, the rope simply hangs in the air and will stay there unless removed by some creature. The persons in the extra-dimensional space must climb down the rope prior to the expiration of the spell duration, or else they will be dropped from the height from which they originally climbed when the effect of the spell wears out. The rope can be climbed only by 1 person at a time. Note the Rope Trick spell allows climbers to reach a normal place if they did not climb all the way to the rope's upper end, which is in extra-dimensional space. And then the material components of this spell are powdered corn extract and a twisted loop of parchment. What this basically says, this last part, if I have a 25-foot high wall that I have to breach, and I have no means to get up and over there, I could cast Rope Trick next to the wall at 30-foot height, and then I could simply climb up the rope, a la Batman and Robin from the old 60s Bat TV show. I could bat climb up the 25 feet, and then I'm over the wall with the Rope Trick hanging there. That it becomes an anchored place. So that's kind of a neat use for this spell. But the best use for this spell is while you're in the extra-dimensional space. You can see out of the extra-dimensional space. So I can see that there are creatures moving around beneath me. So if I'm up 20 feet in the air and I'm in this extra-dimensional space and I've pulled the rope up there, they have no idea I'm there, but I can see them. So what we allow is, the way this came about in our game is I had a player who had a necklace of missiles. That's the fireball. You pull the bead off and you drop it and it becomes a fireball. He had been wandering around with this for a while and was reluctant to use it. It only had 2 missiles on it. It was 2 6 hit dice fireballs on the missile, on the necklace. So they got up in this rope trick, and they were all pretty battered. And there were a group of orcs that came in, and the group of orcs just kind of stopped underneath where the rope trick was. And so they were kind of intrigued. The player finally thought of taking one of the beads off and then just dropping it out, putting his fingers out of the edge of the extra dimensional space and letting the bead go. The fireball detonated. They witnessed the fireball, but they weren't affected because they're in other dimensional space. The fireball couldn't hurt them. That set up just a tremendous amount of ambush using this spell. You could just simply be in this extra dimensional space and just drop a fireball through a wand or through casting and have it detonate and hurt your opponents and not bother you at all. However, if fireball does go off inside the rope trick, I let the fireball detonate, and there is no saving throw. There's nowhere for you to duck, dodge, or hide. It's just there. So you're trapped in this small space. So everybody in there takes full damage from the fireball. But rope trick is a great spell because people can actually, if you cast only 5 feet high, people can actually walk through the area where your extra dimensional space is, simply because it's not really there. You're in another little pocket dimension. I don't worry about bags of holding or portable holes in a rope trick. I realize it's a little counterintuitive. There's a lot of problems with those extra dimensional spaces in extra dimensional spaces. I used to worry about it, and all it did was tend to slow the game down a little bit for no real profit. So I just kind of blow that off. And anyway, by the time characters are high enough to have those kind of items, generally they're not using a rope trick anymore, which is a shame because rope trick can be fabulous even if you're high level. Interestingly, it says you have to climb down the rope. I do not allow someone to just fly out of the extra dimensional rope trick space. They have to exit via the ropes. Their entire body has to be outside touching the rope. So if you have a fly spell cast on yourself, you can certainly fly, but when you come out of the space, you have to be gripping the rope. Fly, have your entire body clear of the extra dimensional space, and then you can let go of the rope and fly and do whatever you need to do. Same with levitation. So just a couple of quirks that we use for that spell, and of course for the mirror image spell itself, the mirror image that I talked about earlier. I don't find a lot of the other ones handy. Shatter, I think I've seen cast once, where you set up a vibration and make it shatter a bunch of vials. I had that happen. A bad guy had an alchemy lair, and one of the players had happened to take shatter. So just to be kind of petty, they cast shatter and blew up all his little vials and things. That's about the only time I think I've ever seen that used. Stinking Cloud sees some use. Strength, rarely used. Web is probably the prince of second level spells. Web is really useful. And then, of course, Wizard Lock. I'm going to touch on Wizard Lock for a moment. 2-segment casting time, 30 square feet per level. When a Wizard Lock is cast upon a door, chest, or portal, it magically locks it. The Wizard Lock door or object can be opened only by breaking, a dispel magic, a knock spell, or by magic user 4 levels or more higher than the one who casts the spell. Note the last two methods do not remove the Wizard Lock, they only negate it for a brief duration. Creatures of extra-dimensional nature do not affect a Wizard Lock as they do a hold portal. Basically what the Wizard Lock is telling us is that you just seal the door. That's great, and always have a Wizard Lock handy in lower level games. It's a great way to seal the doorway behind you, especially if it's a stone door. You can seal it, you can still get out, but nobody else can get through. My wife had a genius use for this several years ago in a game. They encountered a 10-foot by 10-foot pit trap, and they were worrying about how they were going to get across it. And she said, well, I'll Wizard Lock it. And everybody kind of looked at her and said, oh, everyone but her could walk across the pit, across the trap door without triggering it. So they did. And then when it came time for her to go across it, they had rigged up some ropes and things like that. And she came across it, and then she was, when she got across, the door had opened, but she swung safely with the rope and everything. And once she was off the door reset, but it reset with the Wizard Lock because a Wizard Lock is permanent. So I thought that was a genius use for a Wizard Lock spell, one I had not considered. And she, of course, got our obligatory 100 experience points for fine play, something we do at my table, and something my players, even at very, very high levels, still vie for. Everybody loves getting the 100 experience points. It means nothing, but it's a kind of a counting coup kind of thing. So that's it. That's all I want to take a look at for second level MU spells in AD&D, specifically out of the player's handbook. And I make this video because as I said at the outset, I didn't think much of second level spells when I started playing D&D. And then I read the spells and I realized that these are not damage spells, but they're tremendous utility spells. So recommended highly. Really take a look at second level spells and pick some really helpful spells with a large variety of uses. So that's it for today from page 121. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked what you heard and saw. If you did, please like and subscribe. Constructive criticism is always welcome. And thanks for everything, and I'll see you next time on page 121.